All right. Salam. Happy. I really am a creature of habit. I start exactly like that every single time, down to the happy, and then I go into the rest of it. That's different. But these are the things that we that we habituate. All of the things that we do over and over again, and that's actually a perfect thing to bring up because this is the full moon. This is the full moon in Leo today. Happened. Uh, when was it? 2 hours and 50 minutes ago or something like that. 2 hours and 30 minutes ago, somewhere about there. I have it written down. I'll say it later. The full moon, as always, is a time to release and shed. And another way of thinking about it is if you're in the process of, and I was reminded of this by a great teacher of mine, it's not just about shedding and releasing things, or in the sense of like, your emotional baggage or your traumas or whatever. It's also a time to produce things for the world to see. So you think in terms of, I don't want these today. You think in terms of the projects or the ideas that you plant in the new moon cycle, which this is a particularly potent one. We're in this Capricorn lunar cycle, even though we've moved into the sun in Aquarius, but the last new moon was the new moon in Capricorn. So we're in that Capricornian lunar cycle, and whatever seeds we planted, they may be growing precipitously without our even seeing it, or they might be growing very, very, very slowly, which would be appropriate for Capricorn because the slow start is the strong start. The things that we plant, the things that we think up and theorize and idealize and try to make a formulated idea of during the new moon, hopefully it grows to a certain extent while we're approaching the full moon. And at the full moon, it's not just about releasing what's no longer necessary, it's about actually releasing things into the world. So it's a good time for product launches and other things to actually reveal what you have to the public domain. And at that point, it becomes no longer actually yours, it's just something that the public interacts with, and maybe you're just facilitating its movement in the world. You can also abstract that out to much longer cycles. Like, think of, you have a child and then you raise said child and then you release said child out into the world, and it's no longer your child. They're whatever. We have different cycles in life that really reflect that. Like, about 4 years old, kids start to become socialized by the exterior world, and really you're just keeping them alive at that point. Anyway, full moon cycle. The release into the world, or the release away from you. Anything that you decide to abstract from that concept fits into the lunar energy of today. The moon in Leo asks us to approach things of the actual passionate heart. It's like, what are we passionate about? What do we want to create in a dramatic and impactful way in the world? What is our creative purpose? Leo is this creative energy, and this is the one full moon that's ruled by the sun. When we think of the rulership, it's the moon falls into the sign that it falls into, in this case Leo, and the ruler of Leo is the ruler of the moon, and so this time the sun is the ruler of the lunar cycle. So we get an added kind of brightness, an added visibility to it. The things that we want to release into the world, maybe they're creative in the classical sense, when we're making something from nothing, we're doing something artfully creative, or it's being creative, like literally just making a product and setting it out into the world, or setting up a website and releasing it or publishing it on the World Wide Web for other people to see and interact with. But the full moon is a good time to allow things to leave you, whatever that may be. The full moon in Leo brings an added focus on the creative element of things. So What's impeding your creative process? Can you get rid of some of that? What creative projects do you have that they're just not done yet? They're just laying around, that they're like 3 steps away from being finished, and then they go out into the world, and like, what the hell is stopping you from finishing those besides fear? And like, fear is somewhat imaginary anyway. It's in today's day and age, it's imaginary. It's born from the same circuitry that kept us afraid of large cats in the trees, or snakes on the ground, or birds, which might or might not decide to fly by and pick up our youngins. These are the things that we fear, and the circuitry doesn't know the difference between that and some arbitrary fear that we've created, because we're very powerful beings and our minds can turn anything into a pterodactyl. Anything can become a tiger because we learned that it should be feared. The same circuitry exists for that reason. And so these fears that we have these days are mostly imaginary. It's like, maybe you're afraid of getting hit by a car. That's perfectly reasonable. That's a big cat. It will kill you. But most things are imaginary as a fear, because nothing is going to actually hurt you. There's only the perceived injury or harm or whatever. So we get into these creative ruts where we're not allowing ourselves to actually produce things or release things or get them out into the world and whatever. And this is a really good time to see those places in yourself and let some of that loosen up. So we have that. That's the general vibe. Being as the sun is the ruler of this, we also have to focus very deeply on Aquarius. More so than in most places, we focus on where the sun is as well. And the polarity between these two is like, well, there's the social element of Aquarius, because Aquarius is that which rules society and social interaction and the collective energy of things. Leo is very much the self. It is the self-centric. So the creativity of Aquarius is collaborative and cooperative and crowdsourcing kind of energy, versus Leo, which is, well, it responds to the crowd, but hopefully doesn't create based on that response. So it's like, there are similarities and differences here. We have Aquarius, which basically, on one hand, doesn't care what you think. It wants to rebel against everything that you think it should do anyway. And Leo, which wants to do everything that pleases you. And these are both kind of shadow elements of these two. But when you get into the light side, you get into the collaborative creation of Aquarius and the not solitary, but the self-guided creation that is Leo. So we have these two polarities working not against each other, but as a tension point, as a way of creating an awareness of the energetic pull and push of things. This is happening. That's all happening. We all get to play with that. And again, thinking of this in the full moon context, what is impeding the process? What's getting in the way? What can become more easeful in the movement? And what kinds of things can we release into the world simply to create that energetic primer? To just, you have to, as my dad always said, for literally any and usually not relevant situations, you got to prime the pump. You got to prime the pump. If you're not familiar with the physics of water pumps, you have to have something in the water pump so that when you turn the water pump on, it continues to pump the water. Otherwise, it's just going to keep spinning and spinning and spinning, and it won't let anything out. There's some that don't do that. Anyway, you have to prime the pump. You have to put something into the energetic cycle before the energetic cycle can self-maintain, before it can continue, before it can... I was looking for a word. Propagate into the future. There we go. So this is also relevant. Leo rules children and childhood, but children in general. So that propagation comes up as a relevant source of interesting creative potential for all of this. Now, also interplaying with this, giving everything about this full moon cycle an added oomph to it. Pluto, which has just shifted into Aquarius, and it's not it's not its last visit from Capricorn to Aquarius, but it's nearly. We're almost fully into Aquarius for Pluto, and it's going to be there for a while. The final movement into Aquarius after a short time in Capricorn later this year ends November 19th, I think. Maybe it's the 17th, but it's one of those two. Anyhow, Pluto for now is in the first inklings of Aquarius. Pluto is transformation. It is the death and rebirth of things, which is relevant to the full moon energy. We want certain things to die and leave us or allow us to be transformed. So we have the transformer of the zodiac. We have Pluto in Aquarius, the sign of, well, we said collective, collaborative creation, but also self-understanding, self-knowing, self-deciding. And, you know, we as a singular locus of divinity in the world, we have to figure out what our actual self is so that we can most cleanly and clearly project that self into the world. Otherwise, we're just like, you know, projecting some nonsense from our parents, or some, you know, a bad experience in school, or some weird shit with your siblings from ages ago, or whatever it is. The self is shrouded in all of these different things that affect what we actually get out into the world. So Aquarius is finding out what that singular thread of self actually is and allowing that to become a fully fledged energy, a fully fledged entity. So Pluto in Aquarius brings that opportunity. And Pluto in Aquarius interacting with this full moon really just gives it an extra power, an extra ability to allow things to leave, to allow things to die as they need to, and to be reborn as they need to. But mostly we're focused on the leaving part for the moment. Again, Pluto's in Aquarius for a while, so it'll be affecting several things over the next couple of months, while other planets are moving their way through the zodiac. But for now, Pluto in Aquarius is here and gives us an added ability to transform, to transmute energy. Then also interacting with this whole endeavor is Jupiter. We love Jupiter. Jupiter's our favorite. And, well, whatever, that's hyperbole. Jupiter is fantastic. Jupiter wants us to expand into new possibilities. Jupiter asks for us to explore new territory. And it's that new territory that's very rich for Leo. If it's new, then there's an added ability to be creative. There's new things, new information, new sources of inspiration feeding into the creative process. So if we allow for things to leave and go away and die, then we make more room for new things, new experiences, and new mistakes, because mistakes are fan-fucking-tastic. Never was there a mistake in the process of creation. There's no such thing. There perhaps is an unintended result in the act of creation or what have you, but the mistake doesn't exist there. You're just creating. You're just making. If it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be, it still is, and will not ever be an actual mistake. So we have to get rid of that concept possibility. Jupiter in Taurus, bringing in new grounded potential, new wealth, new prosperity, and it's in tension with these planets, or these luminaries, planets by the old definition, the moon and the sun. So we get a square, we get a challenging aspect from both of them to this Jupiterian energy. what does that tell us to do? That tells us that there's some sort of window here where we can, if we decide to really break open a large space for us to actually be more creative moving into the future, to be more self-decided, self-divine, the self-sovereign. Divine is not the right word in this particular context. Leo rules the sovereign on earth. Leo rules the kings, the queens, the what's the word? Monarchs. That covers all of that. Leo rules the monarchical. Leo rules monarchy. We're just going to go with that. The ability to be as a singular bright light that leads the people forward. Forget all of the weird. Well, don't forget. If you forget, you repeat history. But for now, step away from the shadow side of that into the light side of that. Someone who's so confident in their own ability to create positive results moving into the future, that they can lead other people to that. The human beings need that. We're social creatures. We look for someone to actually lead us into the next thing. And that doesn't matter who you are, what level of society you're at. There's some innate yearning to be led into the next thing. And maybe there's no one to follow and you follow God, or maybe there's no one to follow and you follow that thread of personal self within the center. But there's still the energy of Leo in this, and it wants us to be confident and clear enough in our own creative capacity to know that whatever is created is good. So create, go do things, go make shit, go give stuff to the world. Whatever you have created, like, maybe put it out there a little more. And I'm saying this very much to myself also. I fit I fit everything I've talked about so far very well. All right, so that's Jupiter. It challenges us. It challenges us to actually step into something bigger. Jupiter is also the heart center. In the Kabbalistic tradition, Jupiter rules the fourth Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, and 4 is the heart. It's the fourth chakra. It's the it's Jupiter. It's ruling the heart, and Leo is the very heart energy. It's very passionate, very driven by something that's not your brain or your genitals or any of that. It's driven by the heart. It's this thing at the center of you that creates the vast majority of our electromagnetic field, our aura, our ability to radiate into the world. So Leo giving us all of that. Jupiter asking us to take more of it and release the things that keep us small. We don't want that. We don't want the small. And another interesting nuance to this, we're interacting with Saturn in this process. Jupiter is interacting with Saturn in this process. And Saturn is not the opposite, but a very complementary energy to the Jupiter challenge, where Jupiter wants expansion and constant increase of everything. Saturn asks for reduction, for constraint and diligence and discipline. And if you can move with both of those, adding a positive element to your existence, to your production, to your creativity, all of it, then you get a good balance. You get a good balance. You're not just blowing yourself out into the ethers with every bit of expansion you can possibly get your hands on, and you're also not shrinking into a singular unchanging mode of existence. You get Jupiter and Saturn giving you both capacities, the two great teachers. That's why we do this intelligence meditation every day in the studio here. The intelligence meditation works with Jupiter and Saturn as a combined effort, as a combined entity, to give us the best possible movement forward. So we have that. Let's make it more concise. Not quite. I'm not to the wrap up part yet. So other things happening during this full moon, adding to which, when we think of these lunar cycles, we think we have the new moon, and what happened with the new moon kind of flavors the whole lunar cycle from new moon to new moon. And also, in a certain way, from the new moon to its contrary full moon 6 months later. So the Capricorn, leave that aside for now. The full moon is this 2 weeks, the second half of the lunar cycle, where we're still within the energy of the Capricorn new moon, but we're adding the kind of release mechanisms of the Aquarian, the Leo full moon now, as we lead ourselves to the next new moon. So we're thinking in these cycles, and we're adding a layer of flavor, of energy as we move through this full moon cycle, and we're releasing, removing, pushing things out into the world. Inside of this, we also have this energy of well, really just fantastic ability to move forward on things, to step into things without having to overthink them. Mercury in Capricorn, which is finally, at full speed, moving forward outside of its retrograde shadow, all of the things, it has escaped that confines until April. Mercury in Capricorn is nearly caught up with Mars in Capricorn. Mars in Capricorn is the ultimate ability to accomplish. Mars is most happy in Capricorn. This god of war, this god of conflict, and ultimately the ruler of all things as the beginning of things. Mars has a lot of fire, a lot of passion, a lot of ability to get things started. Capricorn is that energy of doing what you need to do every single day to get to where you're going. So the passion, the fire, the actual turbo thrust of Mars, and the ability, the longevity of Capricorn is a very good energy. So we're in this very nice place. It's a couple of months that it stays in this energy, or nearly a couple of months. I think it's 6.5 weeks for this particular stint. The energy of Mercury in Capricorn is, it's a bit hindered, but it's slower than it would like to go. Mercury wants to move quickly. Mercury doesn't care how it started. Mercury always wants to move at light speed, the speed of information moving through the World Wide Web, the speed of, the light from your headlights on your car, reaching from your car to the person in front of your car. It's instantaneous, nearly. Mercury moves quickly. So Mercury in Capricorn, it's slowed down, much like Mars in Capricorn is slowed down, but maybe necessarily so. It gives us the ability to think more slowly, more methodically, more clearly. And it's crazy making to anyone that is mercurial, which is hilarious. But it's nice because it forces the ability to think things through completely. And so we get Mercury in Capricorn thinking things through completely, and Mars in Capricorn, action-oriented but diligent enough to carry through. Mercury is also this energy of the intuitive capacity. So it's a good combination of things. You get the spark of inspiration from Mercury. You get the deliberation from the time the spark happens until you decide to activate on that spark of inspiration. But it's not so slow that you're just driving yourself into oblivion while you think about all the possible ways it could go wrong. It's like inspiration, think it through, and before you can convince yourself not to, Mars in Capricorn kicks your ass into gear, and you get to go, and then you get to keep going. So whatever is happening in this particular full moon cycle for you, it may be flavored by the ability to actually accomplish very much in a very short period of time. We have 2 weeks where we can get a lot done. And this is a good finishing energy. You want to finish things up and get them solidified. And so then you can like move on to the next part of it, or the next thing, or the next idea, or whatever it is, because the new moon in Aquarius is just going to be rip roaring good time. It's going to be great. It's juicy. Um, anyway, it's much more electric, much more action packed, and alien, not alien. Alien is like a really kind of a cliche version of what Aquarius is, which cliches are there for a reason, but I'm trying to find something else that encapsulates the same energy. Anyway, we're always working on different ways of saying things here in the mind of Teg Prakash. So Mars interacting with Mercury, Mercury catching up with it. It'll actually be caught up with Mars in 2 days, I think, where the exact energy hits. So if you want to plan a really accomplished couple of days leading up to that and after that, you can get a lot of work done if you really just let yourself not think so goddamn much. Just do things, and your intuition will guide you along the way. So there's that part of it. What do I think about that? Nope. No, I thought too much. It's not worth mentioning this time. So as we wrap it all up, we have what hinders the creative process can leave, can go away. It can transform or transmute. Maybe it's something that is. Here's a thought. Maybe there's something in your psyche or in your existence or in your habits that that are currently getting in the way of how you create and how you deliver what you're supposed to deliver into the world. Maybe you don't have to get rid of it. So here's just an added complication, but let your intuition guide you appropriately. Maybe it just has to shift. Maybe the perception of it has to shift, or the way that you approach that particular habit has to shift. Maybe you change it to a different time during the day, or maybe it takes on a different lead up. Because like we have habits, and then we have all the like micro habits that lead up to the habits that we do, and all the things we are very predictable. Like very predictable, insanely predictable. You get out of the same side of you get out of your car and go in the same direction around the same, like you literally will draw the same shape in every parking lot you get out of your car in. You will draw the same shape because we're habitual creatures. We look for spots without thinking about it that allow for us to do that. So if you always draw a straight line from your car to the door, then you're always going to look for a spot that allows for you to do that. Even if it's not the closest spot, that's the trippy part. If it's the closest spot, but you have to go around things, you'll likely avoid that spot. Anyway, we're weird creatures. We make patterns out of fucking everything. So if there's something about getting close to the pattern that you need to shift, that actually needs to shift, and it allows the pattern to become a much more feasible and productive thing, that can change too. That can change too. It's a fantastic time. You can. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. It can be a very unique way of approaching the change that has to happen for you to be fully realized. We're just gonna end with that. I think that's about it. Yeah, we're slowed down. It's time to move on and go into the rest of the day and the rest of the lunar cycle. Go finish creating things. You can create more stuff later. Just finish something. It feels really good. It feels really fucking good. You're gonna love it. I believe in you. And me too. I'm gonna go finish a bunch of things like today. Have a lovely rest of your day. If we're going to start a new habit, I am going to promote myself, put myself into the world. So interesting things that I've started to offer. I'm doing poetry based on astrology charts. So your birth chart or a particular transit chart, those things are now available, and you can kind of you can add notes to your wanting for this if you like. But basically, if you have a chart that you don't understand, or if you have something in your life that you don't understand, a good way of understanding it is through a poetic lens. And so that's why I wanted to offer this, because some things I don't see in a chart when I'm thinking about it logically, but I feel through poetry I can get a lot into people's minds. So I'm doing that now. You can find that on my website, tegprakash.com, as well as all of the other things that I offer, regular readings, partnership readings, things like that. Also coming up in 10 days, I'll be in Delray Beach, Florida. So if you're down in that part of the world, putting on a workshop, an astrology and Kundalini yoga workshop with a couple of friends that I have there at Atha Yoga Shala in Delray Beach. So I'll be there for that. And then just keep in touch. I'm doing more things this year. Looking at a retreat down in Mexico, a couple of various traveling engagements where I'll show up in different places. Hopefully I'll be in Europe for 3 or 4 weeks toward the end of the year. And yeah, just keep in touch. Satnam.